Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to have so much fun today because, as always, I am just absolutely delighted to have one of my fellow C-suite networkers on our program today. Always such great information. So please join me in welcoming Danna Olivo to our program today. Welcome, Danna.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I've heard so much about you, Deb. So
oh dear.
Bring it on.
My ears have been burning. I love it. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this. So Danna is a business growth strategist and CEO of MarketAtomy, LLC. Her passion is working with small first stage entrepreneurs to ensure that they start out on the right foot and stay on the path to financial freedom. Known as the business birthing specialist, Danna understands the intricacies involved in starting and running a successful business. Her efforts extend beyond the initial strategic planning process on into the implementation and monitoring phase. She has recently launched the first e-learning environment specifically targeting small micro businesses called MarketAtomy.Academy. Whoa, that's a mouthful. A graduate of the University of Central Florida's College of Business, Danna holds degrees in both marketing and management information systems. She brings more than 40 years, started when she was 4, years of strategic planning experience in business structures, marketing, and business development, both nationally and internationally. Danna is not only a professional business growth strategist, but is a public speaker and best-selling author on Amazon. She has published 5 books, with the latest being Social or Sociopathic on May 17th of this year. So again, Danna, welcome.
Thank you so much, Deb.
Great,
I'm really
great.
excited to be here. So
Such fun, such fun. Well, I always like to kind of get in the Wayback Machine and go back and tell us how you got started in this business and how you discovered that helping these young budding entrepreneurs, and young, not necessarily in age, but young as in experience, how did you decide that this was your passion in life?
failed businesses.
That's a good reason.
I've failed at business twice before. Because I didn't know what I didn't know, ended up going back to school, getting my college degrees, and continued in corporate America for just a little while until I got laid off in 2009 and decided I'm going to start my own business and I'm going to help other small micro businesses succeed. Right, exactly. And in the process, I saw the statistics about how many failed, within the first 2 years and everything. And I said, no wonder our GDP is so high and everything. It's like, come on, there's got to be a way. We are a smart, strong country. And there's no reason for us to have 70% of our micro businesses failing within 2 years.
Right. Yeah. What's the definition of a micro business?
Micro business is generally, on average, 10 employees or less.
Okay.
They generally are making under $1 million, could be up to $5 million in revenue, depending on the type of business. Naturally, your tech businesses do a little bit better. They're generally owned by 1 or 2 people.
Okay, great.
So.
And the resources obviously are the key to being successful. And you can just Google or read lots of books or things about how to start a business. And there's obviously, and we've talked to him on the program, make sure that you've got a good name, register with your Secretary of State, get a tax ID, get a bank account. I mean, all of these various things. but then it's like you're just tossed out into the world, and so tell us more about why you started this program.
Well, you said it exactly there. We make it so easy to start a business here in the US.
Right. It is. It's so simple.
Couple $100 and you're in business, but we don't make it easy to survive in business.
Right.
The programs that are out there, SBDC, SBA, a lot of those programs, when it really comes to helping small businesses, generally don't start helping until they're at second stage,
right?
Which is $500,000 in gross revenue a year. They do have some programs for small businesses, that micro businesses. The only ones that really are there to really help micro businesses is SCORE. Okay, but SCORE is as useful as it is. The consultants, first of all, in SCORE, it's more of a checklist. It's like you said, they'll tell you, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, but there's nobody there holding their hand to do it. And what I have found in the 2 failed businesses I've had, and then working for the last 12 years with micro businesses, is they go into business with a good product or service. They're excited about it. But what they find is they don't know how to build a business around that product or service. All right. And so the story behind, and I don't know if you want me to get into that, the story behind me developing MarketAtomy and the MarketAtomy concept was because when I got back, I went to Brazil for 4 years, back and forth. When I got back from Brazil, I had everybody who was laid off at the same time I was, I worked within the architectural engineering construction market. And a lot of them were 2006 to 2009 were laid off.
Right.
And because they couldn't find work, they started their own business. But they didn't know how to build a business. So in an effort to explain to them, when they didn't understand business, didn't understand marketing, they just knew their product or service, I developed what's called the MarketAtomy concept. And the MarketAtomy concept compares a successful business to the human body.
Okay.
All right. And in the human body, you have the heart. Heart is your passion. It's your love.
Why are you doing this?
Why are you doing this? And it's the same thing in business. Why do you do what you do in business? For example, with me, I do it because I want to make a difference in the micro small business environment. All right. Well, in the brain, that's where all your signals are sent to the heart in the human body. The brain is what tells the heart, walk. Let's do this. Let's do that. Okay. In business, it's the same thing. In business, the brain is your playbook.
Right.
That's your systems, your methodologies. It's your product or service offering. It's everything that makes up the business model. All right. In the human body, can the heart operate without the brain?
No.
No. It's the same thing in business. The brain and the heart have to work together to push your marketing message out through the veins, which are your marketing channels, to the body, which is your market. Now, when you think about it, there's one thing missing, and that is the soul of the business. And that's you. It's your culture. It's your passion that drives that business. And by explaining to these young business owners the concept, it was like showing them this is everything that needs to be done to bring customers through the door. Because my tagline, the business birthing specialist, I tell them having a business without customers is like being pregnant without a way to deliver.
Right. Yeah. It's great, but you've got to get somewhere.
Yeah. You've got to have the doctor to deliver. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. You've got a plan. And that's where this concept came in, is to show them you've got a lot of work to do to bring those customers through the door. But there is a process.
Right.
And as a strategist and a sequencer, okay, A sequencer, basically, a strategist will tell you what needs to be done, things like that. A sequencer, what they do is they give you the roadmap.
Right.
And that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I love that analogy because it really is so true. I mean, we've got many people, obviously, who have the passion,
right,
but they don't have the pieces to do it.
Right.
And one of the things I've discovered after, more than 20 years of working with small business owners is we don't want to admit that we don't have that knowledge. Somehow we think when we say we're a business owner, we're an entrepreneur, we have to know how to do it all. Well, nobody knows how to do it all. I don't want to do my own taxes. I don't want to, I filed for a trademark. I didn't want to have to do all that paperwork. And so we rely on other people, and those are kind of like the specialists, in this analogy is, we're bringing other people in to help, and that's perfectly fine. We need those people, but it's getting all those pieces working together. That is the key. I mean, and there can be difference and variations and things like that, but you have to have the key pieces, or the body is going to go thud.
Yep. Yeah. And you do. And this is where MarketAtomy.Academy comes in. Mm-hmm. Okay. The entire academy is built on 5 phases of growth. Mm-hmm. You got the see it phase. Mm-hmm. That is your visionary phase. Right. That's where you come up with the idea. You're excited about it. Mm-hmm. We call it the napkin stage because a lot of times those ideas come to you over dinner or something like that. Okay. Then you move on to the prove it stage. Mm-hmm. The prove it is where you want to make sure that your product is viable. Your product or service is viable in the market. Are people willing to pay good money for it?
And that's tricky because we think our product or service is the greatest thing in the world.
Right.
It's our baby.
Right. Or oftentimes what happens is you don't price it high enough. Mm-hmm. Right. And your profit margin isn't there. So
or people just don't buy it because they're like, well, that's not, the value doesn't match. And so they don't buy it.
Exactly. So you have to go through that because you don't want to spend thousands of dollars building a business around something that people just don't want. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then you move into the build it stage. Mm-hmm. Okay. The third stage being the build it stage. This is where your business model starts coming to life. Mm-hmm. This is where you start making your revenue. You develop your systems, your processes, your customer journey is identified. Mm-hmm. All of that happens in the build it phase, right? Once you've got that down and it's running pretty smoothly, you start thinking, okay, I'm ready to take this business to the next level. But you probably can't self-fund it.
Right.
You need to go for funding. That's the fourth phase, is the funding phase. This is where a lot of small business owners get confused because they think that they can automatically just go out and get money. But they don't realize
they can go on TV and they're going to give them money.
Right, like Shark Tank, right. What they don't realize is depending on the type of investment dollars that you're looking at, if it's bank or if it's angel investors or venture capitalists or something like that, or even private money lenders, all right, there's a different business plan that needs to be developed. Right. Because you have to put yourself into those investors' shoes. What is important to them? It's not about how great the product is and stuff like that. That is not as important to them as the return is, or whether you're going to be able to make the monthly payments that need to be done. So that funding phase takes you through that and how to develop a pitch, and everything for that money. Once you have that money, you're ready to go and 10x your growth. And that's the final phase, the growth phase. By that time, you're investing in maybe some equipment to help you streamline the processes so you can increase your profit margin. It might be where you bring on additional team members because you want to ramp up for a major campaign or market introduction you're doing. So there's 5 phases there. What happens 9 times out of 10, when a solo entrepreneur goes into business, they want to go from the vision stage straight into the growth stage.
Right. I've made my millions.
Yes. And they've skipped all 3 of the other stages to the point where they're spending thousands of dollars of their own hard-earned dollars and they're bleeding money,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't keep the doors open anymore. And that's why they end up failing.
Mm-hmm.
But the real reason they end up failing is not because they're underfunded
Mm-hmm.
or don't have the best team. It's
Mhm.
because they don't know what they don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so MarketAtomy.Academy is designed to guide them through the process of all 5 of those phases and teach them what they need to know.
Right.
If it's cash flow forecasting,
Mm-hmm.
you can learn how to do that.
Mhm.
If it's market assessments, you can learn how to do
Mhm.
that. If it's packaging, if it's, anything that you need to understand about growing a business,
Mhm.
you can find it under Market Atomy Academy.
I love that. Because it's like you said, so many times people don't know what they don't know.
Don't know.
And it is easy to start the business. I mean, that is the, probably one of the simplest things to do. You
Right.
find out your business name is available, and
Right.
then you apply. And it's so funny. I applied for Wise Women Communications, which is my business name, over 20 years ago, before the internet. And so I had to trot my little self down to the Secretary of State's office.
Right.
And this was in Colorado, and I go in and I fill out like the 1-page piece of paper. It was an LLC. And so, I didn't need a board of directors or anything. I mean, it really was simple
Yeah.
to fill out this
Yeah.
thing. And I believe it was $30 or $60. I mean, it was definitely under 100.
Right.
I wrote him a check. She went on her computer, and then and she handed me, quite literally, from like an adding machine, the tape that it's like 2 inches wide and 3 inches long, that shows that I paid $30, $60, whatever it was. And that was my business license.
That was your business license.
I had wanted them to go, da-da-da, and the band to play and confetti to come down. And she hands me this tiny little piece of paper, which is somewhere in my office. I need to really get it framed.
Right.
And it's probably blank now. I bet the ink is faded. But I remember thinking, now what? It was okay. Now what the heck? And it is complicated. And there are all those steps, and you can't really skip. I mean, that is the tricky part. You mentioned build it.
Yeah.
So many times, because we think what we're doing is the latest, greatest thing in the world, we think it's the field of dreams. Build it, and they will come.
Right.
Not
Right.
so much.
No.
There's, I hate to break it to everybody, but there's no unique ideas anymore. There's some that are new and improved,
Kind of
and,
like the
some
pet,
things like
the
that.
pet rock.
Right. I know the pet rock still just amazes me that somebody made $1 million or more, convincing us to buy rocks.
Rocks, and then little clothes to put on them, and all this.
And then they personalize them for you. I mean, all these things, and we were gullible. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. We could have done our own rocks, but we were lazy. I mean, all these things. And so you do have things like that every once in a while that come up, but we're getting a little bit more discriminating, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, it isn't just that you have the greatest product or service in the world. There's so much else that comes with it. And you really might not have the latest product or service in the world. And it's kind of like I was saying, it is your baby, and when people don't flock to your door, whether it's a real door or a virtual door, to buy it, it's the most horrible feeling in the world. I mean, they didn't like your baby.
Right. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I used to tell this story when I first started, and we were talking about customers coming through the door. And I used to tell this story about Barbie and Ken. Okay. And Barbie had this little tchotchke shop. And, Ken was there to help her out, and they got it all pretty and everything, and all of a sudden it's time to open the doors, and they're just sitting there.
And the cricket is in the background.
And the crickets are in the background, and stuff like that. And I tell them, my clients, I said, guys, don't burn all your nest egg in setting up a pretty business.
Right.
Okay. Because the business is going to evolve. It's going to change. It's going to transition.
Mhm.
You know, what you need to do is you need to sit down and decide, what is this business?
Mhm.
Okay. What is it why do you want to do this business? Where are you going? Develop your exit strategy.
Mhm.
You know, you've got to know where you're going if you're going, or else you're not going to know when you get there. You know, your exit strategy, there's 3 people that you need right off the bat.
Mhm.
You need an attorney,
Mhm.
you need an accountant,
Mhm.
and you need a strategist or a
Yes.
coach.
Mhm.
Okay. Because there will come times that you're going to need to get things off your chest.
Mhm.
And that coach is there for it.
Mhm. Right. And it's
So,
not the people in your networking group. It's not
No.
your spouse. It's not your employees.
it's somebody who can be straightforward with you and tell you what you're saying is crap.
Mhm. Right.
You know,
Mhm.
you're crazy, Danna. You know,
Mhm. Right.
it's
You're
never
like,
going to work.
Mhm.
It's never going to work. You know, I say that, but you know, there's a lot of naysayers when you're out there.
Right. So be careful who you pick.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. Be careful who you pick. Because when I went down to Brazil, when I was laid off in 2009, I was laid off from one of the world's largest construction management company. Okay. And it was at the peak of the recession for the
Right.
construction.
Everybody was getting laid
Everybody,
off.
the whole entire world, the
Mhm.
only country that was coming out of the recession faster than anybody was Brazil.
Mm.
And that was because they were a cash country,
Mhm.
and they just won the awards for both the 2014 FIFA games and the 2016 Summer Olympics.
Right. So they had to build.
They had to build. And I knew the timing. I knew, because of my experience within this industry, I knew what was coming around the bend. And so I went with the U.S. Commercial Services into Brazil to find out what they needed to prepare for the games. What I found out was astonishing. Okay. First of all, they were a country that everything was made out of concrete. Well, they only had at that time about 24 to 30 months to prepare for the games, for the FIFA games first. Okay. So they had stadiums to get ready. They had this, and they had housing to do and everything. It was not enough time to build what they needed out of concrete. It didn't have time to cure. So we brought in steel framing construction, you know, and that was new to Brazil. Okay. At the same time, their communication levels were about 5 to 7 years behind everybody else. So we worked with them on that side. Another one was the transportation side. Especially in Rio and Sao Paulo and everything, they were landlocked. And what would normally take 10 minutes to get was taking an hour because of traffic jams. And over the Paraná Bay, okay, in Rio, well, they were using catamarans, and it was digging up, and they were having it was digging up the bottoms, you know, of the bay and everything, and they were having problems with the ecosystem. All right. So we ended up introducing a completely off-grid hovercraft system that they could use and transport employees to, you know, the salt oil mines, you know, things like that. So it was a lot of fun working down there. Very much a learning lesson, extremely large learning lesson for me working internationally. And I forgot completely why I was going that way. Okay, now where was I going with this? After about 4 years in 2012, Brazil are great visionaries. Okay, but they're terrible planners. Terrible at planning. And I found that out firsthand, because when I first went down there, they had the Pan Am Games about 2 years before.
Right. And
a lot of the facilities they had built had been overgrown and everything.
Wow, already.
Yeah, already. And even after, you know, when they were preparing for the Olympics and everything, they had built the Olympic loop around Rio. okay, for the Olympic Games, which is the highway that was
Right.
going to circle, okay? Within 2 to 3 months, that highway was falling apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they hadn't
Because
even
of
had the games.
because of shoddy construction, you know, and unfortunately, well, they introduced a rapid bus system down in Brazil, in Rio, because they were landlocked and they needed some answers. Well, anybody who is familiar with traffic planning, rapid buses, you set up separate bus stops on inside lanes, okay, to avoid pedestrian traffic.
Right.
They didn't.
Oh, no.
They just set aside a certain number of buses and said, okay, you can bypass these stops. You can go up to 45 miles an hour, you know, on the outside lanes. Well, my driver had just dropped me off. I was walking across the street to my apartment and a bus ran a yellow light.
Oh, no.
Ran a yellow light and hit me.
Oh.
I ended up spending almost 2 months down there recuperating before.
Oh,
I could
dear.
even come
Yeah,
home.
we laugh about being a hood ornament for a bus, and you were.
I was. I can honestly tell you, I am the traffic poster child for traffic planning down in Brazil.
Right.
And jokingly, I say that, you know, I had another year's worth of recuperation.
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
surgery and everything afterwards. So, but I totally forgot where I was going with this. And I think it had to do with
Yeah, I got lost too. It was such fun listening. I mean, we were talking
Yeah.
about the planning stages, and you know, and it just it is something that we skip things. You know, we think, oh, we know how to do
Right.
this, and you know, and we don't have to follow the rules. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times it's exactly what happened to you down in Brazil. We definitely think we can skip steps, or we
Right.
can shorten them, you know, and
Right.
and whether it's that it's basically that you don't prepare correctly. You know, you don't have the right inventory, you don't have the right infrastructure, you know, all of these various things. And we tend to think it's all right, we can fix it later.
Yeah.
And there are obviously things that we can fix later. Getting product to your consumer is not a you can fix
Right.
later thing.
Right. You know, and I remember where I was going with this.
Hey.
Okay. When we were talking about exit strategies and the
Mhm.
plan,
Oh, yes.
and stuff like that. Now, there's also another thing called succession planning. All right. When I was down in Brazil and this happened, my business stopped.
Right.
It stopped, you know, completely. And if I had a succession plan in place, I might have been able to keep it going for those few months,
Right.
you know. But that didn't happen. But where I'm going with this is there is a process that you need to follow when you're starting a business because of the fact that there is so many variables that kick in.
Right.
You know, when you're a business, especially a new business owner, a lot of times you run into and you contract what we call OPA. So what is OPA?
Other people's
OPA is when you become so overwhelmed, you become paralyzed, and then you avoid. Okay? Because that's what happens 9 times out of 10. You
Right.
become so paralyzed, you know, because you're wearing so many hats that you eventually avoid it, saying, well, hopefully it'll work itself out, or I'll do it later, like you
Right.
said. Okay. Unfortunately, that's not the way it happens. All right. There is a process. It's a strategy. And if you're not willing to sit down and do that strategy, chances are you're going to end up closing your doors in less than a year.
Right.
All right.
Right.
You know, that's what the Academy is there for. It's to motivate, to educate. And then the other thing is we include accountability. So
Right.
you have group coaching that happens. You have a private Facebook page. And then we're also introducing bi-monthly mastermind.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
because a situation that happens to one person is not unique. So
No.
if you come in and say, oh my gosh, I had this happen somebody might
Yeah.
have already experienced or known something. And so they can say, okay, well, now here's what happened to us in this situation.
And that's exactly it. You know, I was talking to a gentleman just before I got on with you, and he is bringing a couple of courses into MarketAtomy because I bring on affiliates. It's not just me putting these courses in here. And his is going to be top of the funnel. You know, he's in the sales side. So he's going to bring in a course on top of the funnel. And then we're going to get into CRM and customer relationship management, because that is critical, especially when you're first starting out. All right. Now, he was talking about that, but the thing I wanted to get to was with these courses, every course in MarketAtomy.Academy, even my affiliate courses, okay, they bring two components. You've got a learning component. This is where you're learning everything, but then you're going to immediately sit down and do an integrated experiential process.
Right.
You're going to customize what you just learned for your own business.
Right. Right. And that's so important, because look at how many times we learn something, whatever it is. And if we don't immediately use it, those little things are gone out of our brain. I mean, you know, look at whenever we were in school and we did that. When are we going to ever use algebra?
Yeah.
And of course we do.
Yes.
But the fact that we didn't immediately implement it was something that mattered. You know, the teacher telling me, well, this way you can know how tall the light pole is. I don't care. You know? But if it was something that I could put to practical use right away, then it sinks into my brain.
You know, I said that about my English class. The diagramming, when you
diagramming sentences, really?
What was that all about? Yeah,
I still can't tell the difference between an adverb and an adjective and a modifier. Oh my gosh.
I know.
It's kind of weird. I even know those words still, but I guess I get they ingrained because they were painful.
Yes.
You know, and it is one of these things as we're planning that, you know, we do get so excited. We think, wow, this is great. Or we also might be in the situation of, I got to feed people. I have to have money coming in. And so that's when steps get skipped also. And of course, we've really seen that in the last 18 months, where we had so many people who lost their jobs or left their jobs because of the pandemic. And many of them went, I can do this on my own. I don't need to work for ABC company. I can start my own company. And you know, that's a great idea, because I mean, that's how many small businesses start, right? But in a pandemic, I mean, we just glutted the economy with all of these companies who really don't have that much planning to be successful.
Look at how many podcasts have cropped up
in
the last 18 months.
Everybody wants to do a podcast because it's so easy.
It's so inexpensive. You know, I got into the podcasting industry not to make money. I got in there strictly as a tool to drive people to the academy. Okay. But I mean, just the amount of podcasts that have cropped up in the last 18 months is unbelievable, you know.
Well, and the number of consultants, and I say that because I am a consultant, but so many people really did think, I can do this. And, you know, many can, and many will be successful, but many will also fail.
Either that, or they will end up spending a lot more money than what they had initially planned. Okay. Because of the fact that they've skipped those steps.
Right.
I'm currently working with my publicist right now, because like I said, we're in the go-to-market strategy for MarketAtomy.Academy. And one thing I learned a long time ago is you can't be your own strategist.
Right. Yeah, you can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing.
So I'm working with Steve Emil with okay. And he's crazy. But I love him. So I'm working with him and Rich with C-Suite. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, they've given me their proposals. And this is for my audience to understand, okay? If you let the cash flow dictate whether you're going to move forward, you'll never move forward.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm in a situation where it's okay, I am taking on additional expenses
Mm-hmm.
for this go-to-market strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized I can't do it and worry about the cash flow
Mm-hmm.
at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm turning that over to Steve,
Mm-hmm.
and he's going to be working with my interns that
Right.
I have.
Mm-hmm.
So we can do what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, my job is I want to make sure I have the cash coming in so I can continue paying you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's the way you have to look at
Mm-hmm.
it. Okay. Someone has to be responsible for
Mm-hmm.
bringing that cash in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other thing to keep in mind, okay, is if you're going to start your own business as a solo entrepreneur
Mm-hmm.
and you have no income coming in,
Mm-hmm.
you're behind the 8 ball to
Right.
begin with.
Yeah.
Okay?
You're going to make decisions that are bad for your business because you have a mortgage
You're
payment.
chasing a check,
Mhm.
and that's what you're doing.
Mhm.
You know, don't quit your job
Mhm.
until you are
Right.
at least making, or you have somebody else. Like I
Mhm.
have my husband who's
Mhm.
got a full-time job.
Right.
If
Mhm.
he didn't, I wouldn't be able to do
Mhm.
this,
Mhm.
you know, and I appreciate him totally for
Mhm.
it. And he's right there with me.
Mhm.
But if it's only you, don't quit your job
Right.
until you are making your salary
Right. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
revenue.
You know, finances, that really is one of the things that is the hardest for people to think about. And I remember somebody, you know, there were a couple of really good pieces of advice that I got when I was starting out. And one was open my business bank account. And yes, you need a business bank account, folks.
Yep.
Don't be mixing your money.
Yep.
But she said, you know, open my business banking account in a totally different bank than what I used for personal use, because that makes it much more difficult for those funds to intermingle.
Yeah.
You know, and because you really don't want your accountant to bop you up beside the head. But yeah, you know, and that was easy. I mean, you know, I had a bank account with one bank and I had my business with a totally different bank. You know, and so I did that. But then I also had somebody tell me, treat it like it is an investment. Do not invest more than you can afford to lose. So taking out a mortgage, a second mortgage, big loans, I mean, all of those things, again, you think your business is the greatest thing in the world, but could you lose your house? You know, and because things happen, you know, and all of these various things. So, you know, and you know, heaven forbid, I've talked to people that, you know, they said, well, I've got it all on credit cards. Okay. No, you know, if you all of a sudden, if those came due and you had to pay them, could you? And bankruptcy is not the right option. You know, you can't just say, whoopsie daisy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll really do treat your money at any stage of a business. If you cannot afford to lose that amount, then it definitely should not be your own personal money. But, you know, that is, you know, something to really be thinking about. And don't be losing, you know, don't think, oh, I've got these investors, I've got this loan. No, you know, you can't be losing their money either.
Well, and I have another rule of thumb to apply to that as well. Okay. If you are going to go into debt, the debt you get, make sure it's going towards revenue generation.
Yes.
Okay. It's not to go to purchase a new car. It's not to go to rent an office, you know, unless there is manufacturing being done.
Right.
And, you know, that's being included in your revenue generation.
Right.
You know,
if you're a realtor, you might need that car. You know? But if it's
Exactly.
just, ooh, I need a new car. No.
Yeah. And if you're going to, you know, put the car in there, you know, make sure that whatever fees you are charging, okay, make sure you have that overhead covered.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
What is if you're leasing, if you're, you know, got a monthly payment,
Exactly.
that needs to be included in there as
Into
a
your pricing
business
strategy.
expense.
Into your pricing strategy. You want to be able to cover your overhead. You know, if there's bookkeeping and admin and things like that have to be done to manage your customers, it should be built into your pricing strategy. You know, so, and that's where a lot of small business is, they don't take into consideration when they're pricing their products or services. They're not taking into consideration the fact that, okay, you know, all they're doing is maybe doubling their their cost for the product or service, but they're not taking into consideration that a bookkeeper has to make sure that the payments are made. They're not taking into consideration that this much square footage is needed in order to produce that product, you know, or this equipment is being rented or, you know, whatever.
Right. And things like computers. I mean, all of those things, those are all expenses to the business.
Exactly. So, you know, those are the kind of things that as they go through the growth process and go through MarketAtomy or whatever platform you go to, all right, you need to be learning, you know, in order to succeed in business.
Right. You know, and we want to encourage folks to be doing that research. I mean, you know, there's resources out there that do say you need to do this and this and this. And so, you know, if you're working with somebody and they're not telling you some of those things, or it's not included, you just need to know, okay, well, they're not going to talk to me about X and I need to know, need to know it. Then you have to have somebody that does that. But yeah, it's, you need, and let's be honest, those resources do exist, but you have to find them, and it really is, it's one of the, there's clearly, and we've mentioned it, the very first steps that you have to do. And I think a lot of people even skip some of those first steps. How many people, you probably talk to people all the time. I talk to them all the time. I mentioned it. They still don't have their own business bank account, it tends to be the small businesses, the lawn maintenance people, the one person marketing shop. I mean, things like that, where they're saying, "Oh, just write the check out to me." Okay, no, yes, I'll do that. I mean, if I use their service, but that's not the proper way to run the business. And more importantly, there's so many tax ramifications and things like that. And I tell people there are many things I might kind of on, not the IRS. I mean, I don't ever try and do anything shady with them. But it is one of those things where it's setting it up right to start with. And that takes time, and that is the problem. People are like, but, it's like, no, take the steps, do that, get your business ID. I mean, when I ask somebody for their business ID and they give me their social security number, I'm like, you've been in business how many years and you don't have a federal tax ID? Right. It's a form you fill out online, folks. This is not something complicated.
No, it's not, and then the other thing is the entity that you set it up. If it's going to be a partnership, if it's a solo proprietorship, if it's a corporation.
Yeah, from a liability standpoint, take all those things into consideration.
And not only that, if you plan on growing the business and bringing in equity money, okay, first of all, make sure that somebody has the majority stock.
Right.
Okay. Secondly, hold out 20 to 30% of your stock for equity investors. All right. So many times I will have small business owners coming to me, wanting me to help them set up their pitch and going for equity funding, to grow their business. And I say, okay, how's the business set up? Oh, we've got 4 partners. I said, that's great. 4 partners.
So is it 25, 25, 25,
exactly.
25?
Yeah, and exactly. And I have to break it to them and say, guys, unless you're willing to give up some of your equity,
right?
So that we can put it back into the company for the whoever's going to be giving you money. I says, chances are you're not going to find it. In this particular instance I'm looking at, they had 2 unperforming partners, non-performing partners. Right. And then 2 of them were performing partners. And the 2 non-performing said, no, we're not going to give up any of our
things. They had a great deal going.
So I had to advise them, look, guys, then get out of it with them. They ended up shutting down that business, taking their patent that they had, because it was for women's sandals, high-end sandals. They took their patent, started their own business, just the 2 of them, So, it's there's that's where strategy comes in.
Right.
Okay. When you sit down and you plan this out from the very beginning, and that's why it's important that you know what your exit strategy is. If your exit strategy is to remain a mom and pop shop, that's fine.
That's okay.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if your exit strategy is to say someday become an IPO or, to will your kids the business or something like that, you need to be thinking about succession planning, exit strategy. You need to be thinking about your employees and how you're going to take care of your employees. How are they going to advance? Are you going to put training systems in place? All of this stuff needs to, even in the very beginning, needs to be thought about. It may not be in detail, okay, because you've got plenty of time to do that. But yeah, so.
And it's funny as we're talking about this, I was coming, thinking about the one thing, if you're not doing all of these things, it's a hobby. It's not a business.
Right.
And, and that's great. I mean, there are people who, as a hobby,
they're fine.
Sell things, they've got their Etsy, they mow lawns, they do whatever. And, the hobby is maybe a generous term for some of this, but, if you're not going to take the steps to make it real, or more importantly, when I was starting my business, I had someone who told me that until I took it seriously as a business, no one else would. And some of that was just simple things. Like I remember one of the things she told me, she said, stop using the business cards that you printed off of your printer.
Yes.
Stop using, now it would be like the free websites where it's something at Wix or, and those are great for some things, but for a business, no. So if you're not going to take your business seriously as a business, no one will either.
And that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And what a lot of these stay-at-home moms and, and these side hustlers, the hobbies or whatever, there comes a point in the revenue to where it immediately becomes a business.
Right.
So whether you signed it up as a business or not, okay, once you reach a certain revenue point, immediately
back to Uncle Sam there.
Exactly. It's considered a business. So, and, there's been an 83% increase in new business license applications since the beginning of COVID.
Right.
We're right back to where we were in 2006 through 2009. Okay. If we don't get a handle on helping those small business owners, okay, we're going to be in deep crap.
Right. Because we're going to have a lot of businesses that go under and a lot of a lot of business owners who need to go back into corporate America, for lack of a better term.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and corporate America is not necessarily going to be ready for them.
No, and that's the thing about the pandemic. I mean, so many of these companies are going, we can downsize. We're not,
downsize.
Yeah, they were top heavy. That's just the way many, especially big businesses are. Yeah. They had a lot of employees that now they discovered, we really don't need.
Right.
2 or 3 years from now, they're still not going to need them. If anything, they might need fewer.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. What they're finding is they can get by with the gig economy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They can.
Well, they save money because they're not paying overhead. They're not paying insurance. They're not paying all of those things that come with an employee.
Right. That's exactly it. So, those are the things. It's a benefit for us who are helping small businesses. Okay. But it's a deterrent in the sense where if or when they fail, okay, what are they going to have to rely on?
Right.
Okay.
And many will be in debt. I mean, that's going to be the other big part of this.
Exactly. I firmly believe that if we can even make a 10 to 15% change, positive change, we're going to see more money going into our GDP so that we can decrease that. We're going to see our labor force strengthening. And not only that, the psyche of the business owners and their families are going to improve. And they're going to feel more confident going out and spending more money.
Right.
So just doing that within our own borders without having to go outside our borders.
Right.
we can do it.
Right.
So,
and I mean, on the flip side, what we want to do in many cases now can be international.
Yeah.
And so there's kind of that mix in there of, we can do it here, but we can also provide it worldwide, depending on what we do.
Well, like you said, you've got podcast guests from Australia,
right?
And everywhere. And I'm the same way. I've had 2 or 3 from Australia. I've had 2 or 3 from UK, one from Brazil, all over the country, and they're all interested in the process that MarketAtomy.Academy is bringing to the table.
Yeah, because business is business is business. It doesn't matter what country.
Same thing going on in their countries, and so yes, it's important to keep in mind, if you are going to go into business for yourself, there's resources out there. Don't try and do it on your own and wearing all the hats, because you're going to end up spending more money than you would if you hired. You've got Fiverr you can go to help with bookkeeping.
Yeah, we're not saying it's going to cost you a fortune,
it's
folks.
It's going to cost you a fortune. I've had videos done. I have my blogs taken care of somebody with Fiverr. I have, when I need scripts for videos or something like that, it might cost me $10 here, $40 here, that type deal. And so it's not that expensive.
Right. Now, we don't have a ton of time left. And so I want to talk about, starting young. At what point should we be teaching our children all of these important things?
I am so glad you brought that. You must have heard me before or something like that. I am a firm believer we need to get in front of our tweens, our middle schoolers. Okay. I don't call them middle schoolers because we are broadcasting across the globe, and not all of them, but they're tweens. They're you're 11, you're 10, 11, 12. Start teaching
They're doing
them.
businesses.
They are doing businesses. Let's teach them how to build a business around their creative ideas. I work with interns all the time. The ones that are really bringing the exciting creative ideas to me are your high schoolers. Right. Not the college kids. Okay, it's the high schoolers. I'm saying the college kids do too, but I'm surprised at what the high schoolers do. I've got a programmer I've been using with who is just graduated high school, and he's working with me for 2 years on one of my products. Right. And he just before COVID, he emailed me and he says, "Can I continue working with you?" I said, "Absolutely." Right. And so we need to get them very, very early. Very early.
And I think maybe part of the reason why they come up with these great ideas is they haven't had the years of experience with people saying, "You can't do that. No, you can't do that." These kids think, "I can do it." And I don't care if it's their babysitting job, their lawn mowing, whatever it is. I mean, I have a friend who is developing and she is young, a t-shirt company. And I mean, it's great. And so, and it's kind of like, when I went to school way back, I mean, we took home ec. We did some things where we learned, we knew how to do a checking account, all this, and that's gotten lost. And we need to get back into teaching our children, and maybe they're never going to own their own business, but it's still good skills that they need to know. They are going to own their own babysitting business, but they might not own, a gigantic company, but just knowing some of those things is going to be so beneficial to them.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. So I fully agree. So no, definitely. We got to get them early.
Right. And it does come back to, knowing how to do it from the very start. And knowing, okay, I can do this and I have to invest money. And of course, the nice thing is if you're, a teenager, you probably do have a pretty good venture capitalist in your parents or your grandparents who's, going to help you foot the bill.
My grandparents did. My dad had his own business. But my grandparents, I had some pretty pretty intelligent
Right.
grandparents on my mother's side and stuff like that. They had their own business, you know.
But
They
you
were
weren't just taking their
inventors.
money and losing it either.
No,
these are true
no.
investors, and treat them like that. Just because it's grandma doesn't mean you can keep saying you can keep losing her money.
Yeah, no, I agree. So anyway.
Right. I love it. And I mean, on the flip side, I mean, this is something that, people who maybe they're retiring, they've had this great, wonderful career, but they're not ready to stop working. And, so many of them truly can be absolutely phenomenal consultants.
Yeah.
And so why not? And again, the money's not going into your personal checking account. You might actually need liability insurance depending on what you're doing. I mean, all of these various things. And maybe your exit strategy is only 10 years down the road. But, if you plan it well, maybe it's not 10 years down the road. Maybe there is somebody else who takes it over for you, all of these various things.
Well, not only that, keep in mind that, a lot of people who are our age, in corporate America, they're realizing they can't afford to retire.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They have to keep, they have to have a second job.
No, you're absolutely right. So anyway.
Great. I love it. Well, oh my gosh, we don't have very much time. And so I want to make sure that you tell people how they can connect with you and how they can get your information.
Definitely. Well, they can reach me at Danna, Danna.Olivo, Olivo at MarketAtomy, MarketAtomy.com. They can also go to MarketAtomy.Academy, and they can reach me through there. I'm on all of your social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of it. And that's about it.
Right.
Also tune in to chargedupstudio.live.
Ooh, very
every
cool.
Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m.
I love it. Well, and your website, which is MarketAtomy, that's all one word. MarketAtomy.Academy. It's got great information. And of course, one of the things I looked at was your pricing structure. And to me, it's a very reasonable amount, especially when you look at what you're getting and what you're building. It is worth that, and so folks, I encourage you to look at that and see it. And, and especially if you're just starting out, you might go a bit, but it's going to help you so much in the future. If we're not investing at the very start, it's kind of one of those, it is a kind of a catch-22, but you have to invest at the start to make sure that everything continues well.
Right. And everything has been set up so smoothly so they can get through the process, as far as going through courses, everything. We kept in mind when we developed this site, we kept in mind who our target audience is.
Right.
Our target audience, those solo micro entrepreneurs that need guidance, don't have a lot of money to spend, and they're ready to succeed.
Right. And I think it's just fabulous because, as you were saying, there are so many that fail and they don't have to. I mean, that's the tragedy of it. I mean, yes, there are some businesses that just aren't going to make it for whatever reason. Usually those are the ones that didn't plan. I mean, that's just the biggest thing, or they really did think they had the next pet rock and didn't, and so, but most businesses really with some basic strategy will be successful businesses.
That's exactly it. I have now is the time, because most companies' fiscal years end October, November, December. Okay. Now is the time to plan the next 12 months of 2022.
Right.
And I have a 3-course annual strategic planning program series in MarketAtomy.Academy. It guides you through the entire process from big picture goals all the way through objectives, milestones, budgets, and tactical elements. So just go to MarketAtomy.Academy.
Perfect. I love it. Well, do you have any final thoughts for everyone?
Oh, goodness. There's so many thoughts I could put, I can say, but no, basically, I think what I would say is for those of you who are considering starting your own business, okay? Or who have been displaced because of COVID, or, haven't quite made up your mind. I want you to understand there's an entrepreneur in every single one of us. It's just a matter of finding out where that entrepreneur lies. If you're a housewife and you've developed systems to help you manage your family, something in there could be a business idea, So whatever it is that you excel at could be a business. And also think of what you're robbing from corporate. They put you through courses. They put you through courses, through training and everything. Take advantage of those things. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, this has been an absolutely fascinating discussion, and we could do it again. In fact, I think we should do it again, maybe, in a year, because, COVID will have, it's not going to come and go. We're not going back to January of 2020. Sorry, folks, ain't happening. But things, hopefully by then, will have settled, and we'll be able to talk about this in much more depth. And so I look forward to speaking with you again.
Okay. I look forward to it again as well.
Perfect.
Good.
I love it. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having a wonderful discussion with Danna Olivo. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.